You saw the promo of me with the soap in one hand of a generic type of soap and the other one being more luxurious. And you were thinking like, what the hell was he talking about? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now, and I'll explain a little bit more. My name is Daniel. I'm a sales engineer here at Cluedo, and I've been with Cluedo for 4 years. And I'll take you down the path of search experiences. First things first, let me tell you about what you'll learn today. I can't give you something which you will be able to just use later today when you go back to your website and be like, this is what I will do about it. I would love to. It just doesn't really work like that with these type of things. But hopefully I'll give you some food for thought. Something you can take back and use kind of like the next time you're working on the website, working on the search maybe, and just something that you can take back home, something you haven't thought about. That's really what I want to show you and tell you about. So first things first, search experiences. What does that even mean, right? Sounds a little bit fluffy, and maybe kind of can be to some degree if you haven't thought much about it. But let me give you some things to think about it, right? Where does this kind of come from? Well, it's something about interacting with the search, interacting with the search bar specifically, but also later with the results, and kind of getting a relevant experience. And I'll get back to that here in a minute. This is what we kind of know when we talk about search experiences and, of course, search in general, right? With Google, you'll start to get autocomplete suggestions as you type. That's a pretty good experience. You're kind of being guided towards, a type of content you might not know that you should be looking for. Of course, Google is doing something that's a little bit more broad, a little bit more kind of all over the web, obviously. But you should kind of have the same idea of like people are coming to your website. They don't always know exactly what type of words to use. So kind of helping them by giving them these suggestions is one way of like kind of giving a good experience when it comes to search. Another one is like something like this voice search thing or image search, if you can even be that bold. But the idea here just being that you're kind of giving the user some tools and some ideas for like, how can I actually interact with this search bar? And sometimes it doesn't even have to just be search, search suggestions as you kind of type. It might be that you even show search results and suggestions at the same time. That's another thing you could do potentially. Now, typically when you then complete the search, you go and you see something like this, a search result page where all the different results are, of course, listed in the hopefully most accurate order, as we kind of talked about at the last event. And you get a title, a description, and a URL. But have you thought about why Google is displaying them this way? Why we're just seeing these limited things? Well, in 1998, when Google started, and obviously also search engines before them, they also did something very similar to that, which was that they were showing a title, a description, and a URL. And that was because back then, and even still to some degree today, websites were kind of structured very simply. Like there was like no kind of red thread between every single website in the world, other than the title and the content, and then where it kind of lives, meaning the URL. So it was those three things that they could use. They didn't have much choice, kind of, right? They wanted it to be simple in the first place anyway, but just the sheer fact that they wanted to make something which kind of like goes again on every single website and every single page on the website, they'd have to stick to just the title, the URL, and the description. But let's look at what we mean by this search or this relevant search experience. Because we talked about before how relevance, of course, is the search results. It's about like ranking the results in the correct order, so you kind of hopefully get just the right answer as the first result in an ideal world. But it's also about actually providing a good and relevant experience. So what do I mean by that? Let's dig into it. This should look maybe familiar. This is booking.com. But of course, it doesn't look like this. if I were to perform a search on booking.com and I got this, I would be thinking like, okay, I'm going to Minneapolis, I'm looking at these results, but I'm like, this price, what is that? Is that for like just me, or is it like also my partner? Oh, it's for 4 nights and for 2 adults. Okay, good. But I also know that there are some hotels where you have to pay like a tax, an extra tax. Is that okay? Oh, it's included. Okay, good to know. Now I know that it's included in the price. Is there something else that can distinguish these results from each other? Yes. The stars of the hotel, how close it is to the city center, or whether it's a non-smoking or smoking environment, whatever, these kind of different type of things that might give me, what would you say, an idea of like which one is most relevant for me, as a, like in my case, for what I'm looking for. And so they are providing me with these different type of elements that can help me decide which one is most relevant. And last but not least, something like reviews and which hotel has the best reviews. That would be the most important thing for me. So that's what I'm looking for. It's not like I can't see the rest of them. I just picked that one to kind of go by. And let's say that, okay, fine. I know now that what is important for me is to have a hotel that is, let's say, a 5-star hotel and it has good reviews. How can I find them? Typically, when we then talk about filters, people get a little bit scared. But this is why you have them kind of on the side. It's not something that has to be in your face all the time, at least, but it's something that can be kind of following you along and help you potentially kind of narrow down the number of results. That is the purpose of filters. It's to narrow down the number of results so you don't see, what you say, irrelevant results that are relevant for me specifically in this case. And then you can also, of course, also provide them with many more functionality, like showing on the map, voice search, as we talked about before, maybe showing them in a categorized format. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. And last but not least, maybe I want to change what is kind of the ranking for me. What is relevant for me? I just want the one with the lowest price. Fine, I can go and select that and kind of readjust the relevancy to, not the relevancy, the order to from relevancy to something like a low price, for example, in this case. This is maybe something that's a little bit more relatable, unless you're booking.com. The other one is not super relatable potentially. But this one is a municipality. You're not maybe all in the public sector, but you can still relate to something like this. You're a citizen, after all, most likely, to some degree at least. And the thing is that if you look at this one, I really like this one, by the way. So it's a Danish one. I want to mention that. And I've used Google Translate to kind of translate the page. But I just really like this example. So I really wanted to show this one. And what they are actually doing here is that they are kind of showing, of course, the title and the description, which makes sense. No URL. I'll get to like why they don't do that. But the first thing that you should notice is that they have a date associated with their results. Right? You all probably have some kind of publishing date associated with your results. And even if you don't, maybe you don't want to show it for every single page, because not every page should have a publishing date. That doesn't make it necessarily relevant. But maybe your news could have a publishing date, because that one you have kind of an association that the newer the news, the more relevant possibly it is. So you want to give people the option of like kind of selecting what's newest. Another one which I really like they do, but only on some of the results, is kind of giving them an idea of like, where is this kind of headed? Where is this? What kind of subject is this about? And if they don't have a subject, they at least have a breadcrumb. That is also something else that a lot of websites, not all websites, but a lot of websites have, is this breadcrumb, which kind of tells you about where on the website is this kind of situated. If you are, for example, let's keep it within the example of a municipality here. If you're in a municipality, you probably have some things that are more for the business related side of things. And then you have another side of things, which is maybe just for citizens, right? And if I write something like bin collection, I mean, I could get results from the business side of things. And if I don't see anything else than a title and a description and a URL, well, maybe from the URL I can detect it, but maybe it's not that clear. And I just click on the first result. Maybe I'll end up on the business one, even though I'm a citizen, or I was kind of looking at it from a perspective of a citizen. And so giving them this option of like showing these breadcrumbs is a very helpful thing to kind of think about that you could add potentially to your search results. And then on top of that, they have these images. And these images, are aesthetically pleasing. You could kind of at least argue for it. But the other thing that it also does, it's an easy way to kind of, what would you say, associate a result with a specific image. And if you have good images on your website, you might as well use them, because they can very typically be good to kind of like guide users towards like, oh, this most likely this thing that I'm looking for. As you can see in this example with special needs and something similar to kind of associate with that. And so your eyes are drawn to that. And then last but not least, they have the filters as well on the side. And they have them kind of categorized into different type of areas. And that makes sense for them to do it in this way. And that's the thing, it makes sense for them. All of these different elements that you just see right now, right here, they make sense for them. They reflect their organization, what they do. And so that is also something to kind of consider. Don't be just like Google. That's the whole point of this. This is another example that I really want to show, which is a little bit more, what would you say, broad. They show categories before you even search. And then once you actually do perform the search, you start to kind of discover the breadth of content that they actually have. So they don't just have one type of content, they have different type of content, and the different type of content have different type of display fields, meaning like what they're kind of showing together with the search results. Like their events have a price tag associated with them, for example, and a date. Their courses don't have a date necessarily, but they have a price, and so forth and so forth. So this thing with like, for EDA, it was important to kind of show the breadth of the content that they have and show what possibilities there actually are with EDA. And so they've done that with this categorized format. And depending on what you search for, it will change the order of these categories based on what's most relevant. Kind of taking for given in this case that we have taken care of the relevancy. What about the filters though? Right? I just said before, like filters could be useful, and you could kind of think about the different ways that you can use filters to narrow down the number of results. Think about what's kind of relevant for them, for the users, that is. And so what we've done with, or what they've done at EDA, is that they have kind of, what would you say, hidden the filters until they become relevant. You see the pattern here? So when you click on events, and only when you click on events, you see these extra filters underneath that. And then you click on more filters, and then you see something that's more associated with when the event actually is and who's the organizer, because they have kind of a lot of organizers, a price associated with them, and so forth, right? So you have these different type of elements that you can kind of add to it, so to speak. So key takeaways that I want you to walk away with here, and something to kind of consider when building your potentially next search result page, is what type of content do you have, right? Think about the different type of content that you have on your website. Think about, what would you say, how could you categorize them into different areas? And based on that, what type of elements could you pull out from the different type of content? Like we talked about with the events, pulling out the date, pulling out the price, showing it together with the search results. That's more relevant to show them than a title and a description. The title is, of course, still relevant, but you get the point. Another one is like, what is relevance for your users? So even though you can like kind of, what would you say, find all the different type of content you have and find all the different elements you have, like you have 20 different elements on it for just one type of content. You shouldn't necessarily be showing them all 20 at the same time, at least. You should kind of consider which ones are relevant when you're searching for them. And then pick out those and show them together with the search result page. And then last but not least, how can you help your users narrow down the number of results? This is kind of going back to the filters, right? They're helping you kind of narrow down to what is most relevant for that specific user, for their search query, for whatever they're looking for right now at that particular moment. Think about once again, what kind of key elements from the page you can use to kind of help the user narrow down the number of results. And then, of course, last but not least, going back to Google, I mean, 1998 was a different time, and you saw just what it looked like before. This is kind of what it looks like today, because today they're actually able to find, what would you say, different type of content, different type of elements from a page, because websites are built more structured today, typically at least. They're built in a way where you can actually use a lot of the different elements, in this case for search engines, to pick up on and show and enrich the experience. So this is definitely clear that Google didn't just choose to just show title and description because they wanted to. They actually wanted to show more if they could, and now they're doing it. And they're actually working on another layer on top, which with the generative AI now, if you haven't seen it, it's literally an extra layer on top of the search results. But that's coming later, if not already somewhere in some geographical geo areas. Let's just say it like that, in the United States, for example. But anyway, that's really what I wanted to show you, and I want to hear if there are any questions or comments, thoughts. I'm going to look at yes. So while we're waiting for potential questions, we want to tell you about that we have a next event coming up very soon with my colleague Joachim on Wednesday, and he will tell you about the different type of search experiences, or not search experiences, search behaviors. I talked about search experiences. Search behaviors. Stop laughing at me. Search behaviors. He's going to be talking about search behaviors, a different type of ways that people can kind of, behave when they're searching, and how you can cater to the different type of search behaviors.
We have a question.
Yes.
Is there a difference between relevance search and recommendation?
There is a difference, but I would not say it's big. You can power a lot of recommendations, and a lot of recommendations engines out there are powered by the same, let's say, logic as relevance in terms of search. And so, yes, there's definitely an overlap. And I love that question because we're actually working on something like that as well ourselves. Not that I want to kind of put ourselves out there in that sense, but it is very, what to say, there is a correlation between them. Yep. No other questions?
I don't think so.
Let's just wrap it up then. And I thank you all for coming. And I hope to see you next week together with Joachim. Bye for now.